Hi everyone, this is Soumya Mishra and I'm the co-founder CEO of MeraTutor.AI. I bring you again a very interesting video or a training video on the analytical dashboard features of MeraTutor.AI. Now, if you are a tutor, a student, a parent, or school leader, anybody trying to use MeraTutor.AI for AI-based learning, then this video is for you. In this video, I'm going to quickly go over the analytical features of MeraTutor.AI, which will help you measure the learning inputs of the student and control the learning outputs like never before. Now, let me quickly take you to the MeraTutor.AI analytical dashboard page. So in this page, all you have to do is click on Insights and you will land up on the MeraTutor.AI Learning Insights or Analytical Dashboard page. This is how it currently looks like, and I'm sure you might be thinking that it looks a bit scary with all the data out there, but you don't have to worry about it. I'm going to quickly take you over each of those metrics. We'll start with the learning goals. Now, the concept of learning goal is inspired by the concept of fitness rings, that if you are an Apple user or maybe an Android user, and you have ever been using these fitness bands or fitness watches, so they use fitness rings to track your exercise activities. So on MeraTutor.ai, we are using learning goals to monitor your progress in learning. So here you could edit the goals or set up your own personalized goal. So if you click on edit goal, you will see that there is, learning duration, which is nothing but how many minutes do you want to study daily. So if you are a student, we want to develop the habit of learning, right? And we want to stay consistent. After all, the result would follow consistency. So for that, on MeraTutor.ai, you could, as a parent or yourself as a student, commit to minimum number of minutes that you want to dedicate to learning every day. So right here it is set to 60. You could increase it to, say, at the moment 70. I'll keep it to 60. And then the next ring is called the learning curiosity. Now this is nothing but how many questions do you ask to AI daily? Because the more we ask, the more we learn. So we want the students to ask questions. So for example, this is my son's account and I want him to ask 20 questions daily to AI, so I know he is learning effectively. You could increase it to, say, 25, and this is totally customizable. And then the next one is learning milestones. So learning milestone is how many new pages did the student complete daily, right? Or so here, there's a minimum of 6 pages that I want my son to complete. So you can increase it, say, to 10, right? And then finally, the weekly learning goals, like how many days you want all these 3 rings to be completed. So the weekly goal is met. So how many days a week do you want to complete all your daily goals? So in this case, I have set this to be 5. So essentially, I'm telling my boy that 5 days a week you have to complete all your learning rings, which is learning duration, learning curiosity, and learning milestone. Now, what happens when I do this is I'm forcing him to develop a habit of learning, maintain consistency, and develop learning discipline. And this becomes very important if we want our children to do well in academics. So this is how you could keep a track of what they are doing. So for example, if I click on view all dates, I'm going to show you how the month of maybe January 2025 looks like, or maybe we'll go to January 2026. Yeah, and this is how my son's January looks like. Like these have been, all the days that he has actively closed his rings, not closed his ring. And as a parent, I can ask why not, right? So let's go to maybe, yeah, February, because he was preparing for his exams. So maybe if you go to 20th and click on 20th, you will see that, he had been learning for about 303 minutes. So that's more than the minimum requisite of 60 minutes. So that's why the ring is closed. Similarly, he asked like 37 questions on that particular day to the AI, and he covered about 23 pages on the system. Now, this is not something that you get on generic chatbots. So that is why MeraTutor.AI is one of the platform where you can track all the learning activity of your child on a single platform, and that becomes very important. So this is how you're going to track the learning goals and enable your children, your student, if you are a student yourself, to form a habit of learning. Also, I want to show you a very interesting concept that we call is the learning summary. Now, as a parent, right now I'm at the office, but I want to know what my son has been doing as far as his academics is concerned. Did he do his homework? Did he ask questions? What did he learn? So instead of me trying to call him and he trying to tell me what he did, all I have to do is like go to learning summary. So if I click on learning summary, we come to this page called the learning activity summary, and this is a cool page where you can track all the engagements of the student with MeraTutor.AI. So what course he accessed, how many pages he read, how many questions did he ask, how many notes did he save, also how many pages did he summarize, how much percentage of the questions were in coach mode, how many workbooks were created and downloaded, how many quizzes were created and played, how many web searches, how many image searches, how many video searches, and how many workbooks or quiz did he share with his friends. All the activity that are there on MeraTutor.ai, you will be able to track all of them when you come to this page. I'll show you a quick example. So let's go to a day where there is activity. For example, I'll take you to February, and let's go to February 11, or maybe let's go to February 24. And if I click on February 24, I'll be able to see some data. We'll come to this data a bit later. But if you want to ensure that you get more information as to what your child did on that particular day, you could click on generate summary. So it takes some time, but then it also generates a summary of what exactly your child did on MeraTutor.ai. So we'll just have to wait for a moment. In the meanwhile, I'll share you the study activity. Okay, the summary is generated. So right now you can see that you have had a productive study session today, spending nearly 4 hours across wide range of subjects. Your focus on technical details, on English grammar, and conceptual differences in mathematics show a high level of academic diligence. So, overall, I know that, my son studied English, grammar, and mathematics. So he accessed about 6 courses on this specific day. 23 pages were completed, 39 questions asked. Did he use coach mode? Yes, about 8%. One page summarized, one workbook was created, one quiz was created, right? So I know everything that my child is doing on his computer when he tells me he is studying. So, it doesn't have to be, something that he says and which I cannot verify. They say trust, but verify. So when you give your children the, authority to learn online using YouTube, ChatGPT, there is no way you can track what they did. And this is where MeraTutor.ai brings in control for parents, schools, and teachers. You'll be able to exactly measure learning effort the student put in, right? And this is how you do it, right? So over here you can see that my son accessed mathematics for grade 8, chapter 8, algebraic expression, and he was there for about 6 minutes. I can go back and ask, how can you learn anything in 6 minutes, right? So maybe he was just scrolling through the pages. But right here, I also see that he spent 24 minutes on chapter 11, short story for English grammar, 2 pages completed, 2 queries asked, right? For 70 minutes, he was on a chapter called Prepositions, which had 7 pages, and he asked about 6 questions. And I can tell him to ask more questions, right? So about 36 minutes, he was on the chapter called Conjunctions. So he studied the material for 36 minutes and so on, right? So this is all his activity on MeraTutor.AI. And as a parent, as a guardian, you once you have information like this, you can ask them more questions, or maybe you can tell them to ask more questions. You can coach them, right? So all that can be done once you have information to this kind of an information. So we'll just stop there. I hope you understand how to, get the data you're looking for your student, for yourself, if you are using MeraTutor.AI, right? Also, there is the concept of trends. Let's move to trends. So trends is basically, to see how your week compares to your usual lifetime learning pace across learning rings. So we compare these learning duration for this week, versus your lifetime data, just to see, how you are trending this week versus all your, past learning duration and number of questions and number of pages completed. Also, there's this concept of streak. So, we try to measure the number of days you have been active on MeraTutor.AI, especially during exam time. We want the student to maintain a streak. For example, if you look at this, so in between 28 Jan to 12th March, my son had a streak of 40 days, which means that for 40 days he was active on MeraTutor.ai trying to learn. And this is a good streak, and this is something that will motivate the child to be consistent for his academics. So something that you could ask your students, your child, to use, and maybe also give them a pat on the back if they do like a 15-day streak or something like that. Also, one very important analytical feature would be the safe chat alert. So this is going to be the heart of MeraTutor.ai. So let me show you how it works, okay? So let me take you to our chatbot. And for that, I'm going to just use the instant chatbot. So click on start chatting. And in here, so let's say the student writes something that is not related to study. So I want to know who the top actors of Bollywood are. Question. So let me ask that question to the chatbot, and try doing this on other chatbots like ChatGPT or Gemini. So right now on MeraTutor.ai, what happens is, it just does not answer this kind of a question that is not related to academics. So right now I'm a study buddy and I focus strictly on academic subjects like science, history, mathematics, and languages. I cannot provide information about Bollywood actors or the entertainment industry. However, if you are studying media and cultural history, blah 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 blah. So the end result is it's not going to come up with any of that kind of an information. Now let me ask something that may be dangerous. So I feel suicidal. I want to harm myself. And there have been reports where students are trying to engage with AI chatbots, trying to treat it as like a friend or a psychologist, and they are trying to exchange these kind of conversations. So if we do that on MeraTutor.ai, what happens is we yeah. So right now you can see that the moment you tell it that I feel suicidal and I want to harm myself, you're not alone, I'm concerned to hear. So it just asks the child to dial certain numbers based on the geography, right? So it just does not accompany the child in answering those kind of questions. Also, if I ask it a more dangerous question like I want to, or can I make a explosive So that is supposed to be a dangerous question for a child. And when you ask those kind of dangerous questions as well, we try to, not answer them and block them, right? So safety and academic, I cannot, so, it's not something that we are going to answer to the child right here. The same thing also, the same set of stuff is also taken care at the AI tutor level. So if I go to computer and I'm here on Internet of Things chapter, and even if I try to ask it things like how can I make a bomb, question mark, right? So the chatbot is not going to answer that kind of question. For example, here you can see that the response may be off topic from the current context, right? So we are not going to allow the child to get answer to those kind of difficult questions. So the beauty is all of the conversation can be easily removed if the child is using a chatbot like Gemini or ChatGPT. But on MeraTutor.AI, parents or schools or tutors, they can be rest assured they will have complete visibility into what the child is doing on the internet, how they're engaging with AI, and that is a non-negotiable if you are going to use AI in education. So if you go to Insights, if you go to the Inside Safe Chat Alerts, you see that right now we are showing a warning sign and we are clearly showing there are 4 off-topic queries detected. If you click on Review the Flagged Queries, all the questions that I asked right now to the chatbot, they're being shown to you. If you're a guardian, you know how exactly the child has been engaging with the AI, right? And there's no way to hide that. And for K-12 student, it is important that parents and schools and tutors understand how their child is engaging with the AI. So right now, here, these questions that we just asked are being shown to us on the review flag questions. So all you have to do is kind of acknowledge them, and once you acknowledge them, we reset the safety alert to kind of this green tick mark. So, you can have a conversation with the child and then acknowledge them. That's how you use it. There's a global ranking as well on the analytical dashboard where we are kind of comparing, all the users globally with one another, and, based on the duration spent for studies, the number of questions asked, and the number of pages covered, we kind of try to rank them globally. So these are some of the people who have been doing well on MeraTutor.AI, and on duration and curiosity as well. We are kind of showing who the toppers are, right? So again, we have the weekly average versus the weekly effort. So students who want to be on top of this leaderboard exactly know what they have to do. So for example, here you can see that the average is 150 minutes. My average is 74 minutes. So, it just asks me to spend more time in studying, and that way I can, go above the average. Same for learning curiosity, learning milestones, and also the suggested action is there. Right now, this account is kind of a rank 1, but if you are somebody who is rank 2, 3, 10, it tells you precisely what you need to do to kind of rank higher up on the MeraTutor.ai. So these are some other things where, we tell you about, the study time and the active days, the total courses, the total credits used. All of those are being shown on this dashboard. We show you the top courses based on the number of questions that the child has asked. So right now, mathematics for grade 8 is one of the top courses because the number of questions that we have asked is about 1136. The learning duration for last 30 days or for last 1 year can be all looked at here as well. Also, I'm going to talk about the allocated storage. Now, know that MeraTutor.ai as a platform or as a system does use storage to store the PDFs or the course content. So based on what kind of subscription you are allocated storage to store your PDF. So right now, for example, I have 30 GB. So I'm on the top tier subscription. So I have like 30 GB. And out of that, I've been using about 1 GB to store all the PDFs that I have uploaded to my system. So you can, check if, what kind of storage you are allocated on your dashboard, and, what space has been consumed by the PDFs or the courses that you have imported on in your account. Okay. So that's allocated storage. I mean, for more information, you could always click on, the eye icon to understand what this would mean. You could also manage your storage by clicking on the gear icon. So if I click on manage storage, I'll be able to see all the different PDFs that have been uploaded to the system, and I could click and delete some of them to kind of reduce on the storage size. I don't have to do that right now. Last but not the least is the credit usage statistics. Now, every time you ask a question to the AI on MeraTutor.AI, the system would use credits, which are like AI credits that the system needs to use to bring you a fetch answers. So, every subscription comes credit allocation every month. So based on, what kind of subscription you will get a fixed amount of credits, when your subscription starts, and, it just keeps on repeating every month, right? So right now you can see that if you have to track the kind of credits that you have been spending, this is where you do it. So you come to the credit usage statistics. In here, you can see if I choose last 30 days, you can see that, I've been using my credit this way. If you click on these, blue sticks, you can see the number of credits that have been used on so and so dates. For example, here I have used about 1,500,000 credits on March 26. You can also change the view, use a line graph instead of a bar graph. You could also click on this notebook icon on credit usage statistics to view at a detailed report of your AI credit use on the system. So if I click on it, you can check the dates on which your credits were used, how many credits were used, what is the available balance. So this is how we ensure that MeraTutor.AI is a transparent system when it comes to using, AI credits on the system. Yeah. So this is all about the AI credit system, and I just hope that you can log into MeraTutor.ai, create a free sign up account if you don't have a paid account yet, and explore all these cool features. Like if you are a parent, if you're a tutor, if you're a student, there is something for everybody on this amazing dashboard on MeraTutor.ai. Thank you so much for listening, and I'll soon see you in our next training video. Thank you so much for watching again.